SpaceX Starlink's guaranteed internet speeds drop. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much once again joining me for tea time. Today we have a little bit of misty morning, and that is it. Clean, good. I hope you're joining me with your cup of tea, cup of coffee, hanging out, talking tech, talking photo, talking video. Today is a Starlink day. We're going to be talking about SpaceX Starlink's guaranteed speeds. And they're dropping. I want to get into these speeds with you because folks have been asking me, as of today, would I recommend people to buy into Starlink? Yes or no? And I'm going to get into that by the end of this video. I'm going to tell you why. My feelings on SpaceX Starlink has changed a little bit over time, and I'll get into that also by the end of this video. So last night I put together a table. It took me hours, but I figured a lot of you guys are going to want to know, where was Starlink, let's say a year ago, in comparison to where it is now? So I took data from back in like April, just before maybe March, and I compared it month after month till now. So you get an idea of what has changed, not only speeds, but also latency, data cap, all kinds of stuff. The things that have changed over this course of a year. And I'm going to go through it all with you. So I'll probably show it on the screen just so you can see it. And I'm going to highlight the things that change as the months go by. And hopefully this gives you a better understanding of how Starlink was back then, let's call it a year ago, in comparison to the way Starlink is now. And hopefully this will also give you an idea if this is still good enough for you and for your needs, all right, your use case. Before I get into all this, I want to say that if you haven't downloaded any of my ebooks as of yet, go check them out. They're 100% free. Go over to JCristina.com/books. Once again, JCristina.com/books. Also, if you enjoyed this content even the least, throw it a thumbs up. That would be very, very helpful. Please do so. If you're not subscribed as of yet, consider subscribing and then clicking this button over here so when I go live or when a new video comes out, you will be notified of it immediately. Also, if you just want to say thank you for all of my hard work, the many hours I put into this stuff, there is a thank you button right down here that YouTube gave to us. Thank you, YouTube. You can click on that, but if you don't, that's fine too. Consider becoming a member of the channel. We would love to have you. And finally, if you want more Starlink content, I put together right about here, you can click on that at the end of this video, not now, at the end of the video. I'll put a link where you can go to take a look at my Starlink playlist. I have over 120 videos of helpful how-tos, tips, tricks, commentary, what to buy, what not to buy, all this kind of stuff, and most importantly, the why behind all of it. Because my personal opinion, why is the most important thing out there. I wish more of the teachers in today's public schools would teach more of the why and less of the how and all of this memorization. Anyways, that goes into a whole nother rabbit hole. Anyways, let's get into this table that I put together for you guys. Now, I'm going to pop some of it up maybe here somewhere as we're talking about it. Now, we're going to start with April. At that time, there was only a standard service and a business class service. And as you can see, the latency on both was 20 milliseconds to 40 milliseconds. The download speed on the standard is 50 to 250 megabits per second. The upload was 10 to 20 megabits per second, and there was no data cap. On the business, once again, it is 20 to 40 milliseconds, 150 to 500. Remember that number, up to 500 megabits per second down and 20 to 40 megabits up. Once again, no data cap. Now in July, we see things change just a little bit. And what I did is I highlighted the changes in red so we don't have to go over all the rest. There's a couple of things that changed. Number one, standard service went from 50 to 250 megabits down to 50 to 200 megabits down. So they took that top speed from 250 megabits down to 200 megabits down. Now they did the exact same thing with business class. They went from 150 to 500 megabits down. They dropped that down to 100 to 350 megabits down. Everything else remained the same, but they added in RV service. And as you're going to see with these charts, they keep on adding in new plans, but as they do so, the speeds don't get better, they constantly get worse, and even the latency will get worse. We'll see that in just a second. Now, everything remained the same in August besides business class. Business class used to be 20 to 40 megabits up. They changed it to 10 to 40 megabits up. So as you can see, it's very obvious that they noticed some slowdowns between July and August, especially when it comes to business class. They're probably getting people that were on that business program saying, hey, you're telling me that we're supposed to be getting 20 to 40 and we're getting 15 and we're getting 10. What is going on? So they changed it. What also happened, as you can see here, is they introduced yet another service. This time we have maritime. So yet again, we see another service being introduced, but speeds getting slower. Now in October, everything in the Starlink specs remained the same. Besides, they added yet another service. So now we had RV, maritime, and now this next service is called Best Effort. Now they added this Best Effort service in because they recognized that a lot of people wanted their service, their business class or their residential, or as they call it, standard service, but it's just simply not available. And they were backed up for 6 months or a year or even longer to get the service. So they came up with Best Effort. And what Best Effort is a means for them to give you service, but with the understanding that you're not going to get full throughput, the maximum speeds. You're going to get the data that's left. Let's say, the bandwidth that's left. That's what you're going to get. So what they say is you're still going to get the 20 to 40 milliseconds because your connection speed will still be the same, but your service is going to be a lot less. So for Best Effort, you see a download speed of 5 to 100 megabits down and 1 to 10 megabits up. Now look at the difference between standard and Best Effort. You're looking at a major difference. On the max speed, you're looking at a halving from 200 megabits per second down to 100. And on the low end, let's say there's a lot of congestion, from 50 megabits all the way down to 5. And also on the up speed, you go from 10 to 20 megabits all the way down to 1 to 10 megabits. It is a major difference. But once again, this is great for people that absolutely need the service and they don't mind having slower service, but some service. And that's what this Best Effort was all about. Now, in November to December, this is where shit hit the fan. Okay, so what they did is they added in 3 more services because they have nothing better to do. So they added in this mobility service where you can take this unit on the go and it will still work even while you're moving, right? So you have a recreational service, a commercial service, and a premium service. And when it comes to latency, it just says under 99 milliseconds. What that means is they don't know where you're going to be or how close you're going to be located to a ground station. So they just basically say, let's say 99 milliseconds or less. We don't know what it's going to be. It might be that 20 to 40 if you're close to a ground station. If you're way far away from a ground station, it might be closer to that, close to 100 milliseconds. They don't know. When it comes to speeds, the recreational was 5 to 50 megabits down and 2 to 10 megabits up, while commercial was 40 to 220 megabits down and 8 to 25 megabits up, and the premium was 60 to 250 megabits down and 10 to 30 megabits up. Now, the major things that changed here between October and November, December of last year, and why I call it like an oh shit moment for us customers, is the latency completely changed. So instead of listing 20 to 40 milliseconds as it did before for standard or business, or now they call it Best Effort and RV combined together, it went down to 25 to 50 milliseconds. So it is slower. There is more latency there. Also, your standard service or your residential service went from 50 to 200 megabits down all the way down to 20 to 100 megabits down. Literally a halving of that speed. Also, the upload speed went down from 10 to 20 megabits up down to 5 to 15 megabits up. That's for standard. Now, business, the same thing happened. They were at 100 to 350 megabits down. They dropped all the way down to 40 to 220. And when you look at the up speed, the month before was 10 to 40 megabits up. It dropped all the way back to 8 to 25 megabits up. Now, the best effort and RV, they lumped together. And what they did with that is they said 5 to 50 megabits down and 2 to 10 megabits up. Doesn't matter if it's best effort or RV. And once again, this is a reduction. Now, what also happened during that 1 month time frame from October to, let's say, November, December, they no longer list that there is no cap. Now, this data allowance was on every single chart that I looked up until November, December of last year. Once November, December happened, all of a sudden it was no longer listed. The entire line item was just gone. It doesn't say if there is a data cap or not. The reason being is because right around that time, they were thinking about doing a data cap and a specific amount to each different service. So for standard, it was like 1 terabyte. Business, they all had different data caps. But they pushed that forward and they said, well, we're not going to do it. That was November. They pushed it into February. They said, we're not going to do it. And now they're pushing that data cap into April. So maybe by April, we will see that line item once again pop up where it says either no cap or it does say cap, and then it shows you how much of a cap there is. 1 terabyte, 2 terabytes, 4, whatever the case might be. Depends if you're a business class, a standard class, best effort, RV, maritime, and so on and so forth. So now that we looked over the 2022 numbers, let's look at February 2023. What has happened? The bottom line here is nothing. It's literally the same. They haven't changed anything since November, December of last year. So we have about 3 months, let's say, right around there, that nothing has changed when it comes to your data, the specs, what Starlink is guaranteeing us. So that is really nice to see because we had now a long period of time, let's say long in the scope of things, where nothing has changed. It hasn't gotten worse. Now, there was one thing that changed during that course of time of this past year from 2022 to 2023, and that is one paragraph. They kind of added something in here. Originally, this paragraph on this page stated this. It said, stated speeds and uninterrupted use of services are not guaranteed. Actual speeds will likely be lower than the maximum speeds during peak usage hours. Starlink may temporarily reduce speeds if the network is congested. Now, what they added into that, they left all of that lingo, but they added this. Users may experience higher latencies in regions that are far from Starlink ground stations or during periods of high load on their user terminal. So, if your terminal is under high load, you're going to experience higher latency. Also, if you are in a region that is farther away from their ground stations, you're also going to experience higher latency, which simply makes sense, right? So that's one of the reasons why they said under 99 milliseconds for all of the mobile coverage. Why? Because they don't know where you're going to be and how far you're going to be from the ground stations. So let's do a quick compare and contrast of their guaranteed speeds and latency over the last year. So to start out with the standard coverage or their residential coverage, the latency started out a year ago at 20 to 40 milliseconds. It is now increased as of today to 25 to 50 milliseconds. As far as the download speed, your megabits went from 50 to 250 last year to now 20 to 100 megabits down. And the upload speed last year went from 20 megabits up. Now it's sitting at 5 to 15 megabits up. Not good. Now, the business class also changed. Latency went from 20 to 40 milliseconds all the way up to 25 to 50 milliseconds, just like the standard service. Now, download speed is where there is a major difference. The download speeds were at 150 to 500 megabits down, whereas now it's 40 to 220 megabits down. That is a major reduction. Once again, a halving or even less than half. The upload speeds went from 20 to 40 megabits up down to 8 to 25 megabits up. That's just the way it is. Now, what was I getting? So, I'm glad you asked me. When I first started with Starlink, I was getting 310 megabits down and about 35 to 40 megabits up. Because there was not a lot of people, I think it was like number 2000, 2100, somewhere around there, dish that was sent out. That is the Generation 2 dish. So what am I getting as of today? Well, I'm seeing about 150 megabits down when there is no congestion. If there is congestion, it will plummet all the way back down to about 40 megabits to 60 megabits down. That is a far cry from the 310 megabits down that I was getting a year and a half ago, let's call it. Now, as far as up speed, once again, I was getting 35 to 40 megabits up. I am, as of today, getting about 10 megabits up during non-peak times, maybe peaking out at about 13 megabits up. But when there is congestion, I'm seeing anywhere from about 5 to 7 megabits up. 5 to 7 megabits up compared to 35 to 40 megabits up is a massive difference. So the question that you guys have is, would I recommend SpaceX Starlink? Looking at these numbers, where we've been, where we're going, would I recommend it to someone? And who would I recommend it to? Well, not being a fanboy, but I am a fan of the service. But not being a fanboy and being objective here, I would say that, yes, I would still recommend it. But I would recommend it to certain people and not everyone. If you are a person that doesn't need to have coverage that is 100% non-spotty, let's call it, where it is just on all the time and you don't have to worry about any degradation of speed, then this is okay. Also, if you don't mind your speed slowing down during times of congestion, then this is also a really good system for you. Also, if you have Viasat or let's say HughesNet or any of this other trash, then SpaceX Starlink is definitely a unbelievable option for you. Hands down, period. Even at its slowest speeds as of today, hands down, better than both of the other satellite internet service providers. That's it. Now, on the other hand, if you have access to, for example, Verizon or T-Mobile Home, where you're getting unlimited data at 5G speeds for about $50 a month, Starlink is not for you. If you have access to fat cable, or copper, as I call it, or even fiber, Starlink is definitely not for you. But even in those situations where you have access to cable and you have access to fiber, I still believe Starlink to be a great backup service. So if you can afford a secondary ISP, all right, I think Starlink is a great place to be. Why is that? Well, if everything just nukes itself and now all terrestrial coverage is non-existent because if there's some type of outage, because the network is somehow imploded for AT&T or Verizon or whoever you have, your service provider, well, this non-terrestrial method of getting internet will most likely still be there. Now, yes, they do use POPs, which are point of presence, and they also use ground stations. So there still has to be some terrestrial movement of data. But a lot of the data movement is now going to be happening in LEO, or low Earth orbit. That being the case, there's going to be less and less need for ground stations to be really close to you. So I do believe it's still to be a very viable option when it comes to the internet. Now, do I think that Starlink is going to get better or worse over time? Well, I think in the short term, I think we're going to see Starlink get worse. I know people don't want to hear that, but I do believe that we're going to see a little bit more of the shortcomings when it comes to SpaceX Starlink. Why, once again, do I say this? The reason I say this is because they are overselling the service. Like I've said in the past, an analogy of eggs. If you have a dozen eggs, you have 12 eggs, but you have 15 people that need an egg. Well, the only thing you could do is chop an egg in half and give each of them half. And when you chop an egg in half, it gets messy. And that's exactly what happens here with internet coverage. You start chopping that data in half and people get pissed off. And that is what's been going on here. And we can see that in this table that I put together for you guys. So all in all, I'm still happy with the coverage that we're getting. All the time happy? No. Most of the time happy? Yes. Am I happy that I have this in comparison to like HughesNet or Viasat or some other trash that is geolocated, that is extremely slow, high latency with crazy data caps? Yes. What I do want to see, I think is mission critical for Elon to do here is two things. Number one, hold fast on these speeds where they are, all right? Keep them stable and eventually start moving them up as you get those Generation 2 satellites in orbit, okay? Number two, get a damn call center, all right? For the love of God, get a call center where people can call in with questions or problems. If you can't support that as of right now, at least put 24-hour chat for any current user of SpaceX Starlink to be able to chat with someone. And please make sure that that person that is chatting also speaks the language of the party that is calling in. So if someone is out of Dubai, they should get someone in Dubai. If someone is chatting in from the US, they should get an English-speaking person. The same thing in every other country, all right? It's going to cost a little bit more, but it will be so much better to have an interaction with someone that can actually speak your language. So some type of technical support is something that they need to do immediately, if not sooner. It's not like Elon doesn't know this. He knows this, right? He's trying to figure out how he's going to afford it. Right? The numbers are probably not matching up as of right now. As you can see with my table, they keep on adding more and more services. It started out with standard and business, and then went standard business RV, and then it went standard business RV and maritime for the boats. And then finally it went standard business RV maritime and then best effort because they needed to do it because no one can get the service. So they had to put best effort out there. And then they went standard business RV maritime, and now you have aviation and now mobility, recreational, commercial, as well as premium mobility. So by them constantly adding more and more and more packages, well, there's going to be more and more people taking up more and more data. And once again, you can't give 12 eggs to 15 people. That's just simply the way it goes. So anyways, I hope you found this helpful. It was fun putting this all together for you guys and maybe take you on this journey of 1 year on where Starlink started and where they are as of now over that past year. And I'm very, very hopeful that things are going to get better. And I am very happy that things haven't got worse over the last 3 to 4 months. Almost a full quarter has gone by and there has been nothing getting worse when it comes to latency or their guaranteed megabits up and their guaranteed megabits down, and they have not implemented that data cap as of yet, which is also awesome. April is going to be a very big month because then we're going to find out if this data cap gets implemented or doesn't and what goes on with speeds, and there's going to be a lot of stuff. Either it's going to hit the fan in April or things are going to be okay or copacetic in April. So we're going to report back to you guys and let you know. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, throw it a thumbs up, subscribe, click this button, all those things. And finally, head over to my website, JCristina.com, where you can find all the photography tools I've invented for you and me over the years. And hopefully there's something there that you might like. And if there is, please pick it up and support me and my family. That's it, guys. I'm out of here for another vlog. Many blessings to you and your family. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Love you all.